She owns $500 million in art, flies private, built a museum, and lives like no one else. This is how the world's richest woman spends. Meet Alice Walton, the richest woman in the world. As of now, her net worth is a staggering $93 billion, according to Forbes. That's not just wealth, that's generational power. She inherited her fortune from the Walmart empire, created by her father Sam Walton. But Alice hasn't just held on to the money. She's used it to build a life that's both extravagant and unusually private. Let's check it out. Alice Walton doesn't chase the spotlight, she buys it in brushstrokes. While other billionaires flaunt designer brands or exotic cars, Alice pours her money into American art. And not just a few paintings on a wall. Her private collection is worth over $500 million, filled with rare and iconic works that most museums can only dream of owning. At the center of it all is her obsession with Georgia O'Keeffe. Walton has spent tens of millions acquiring O'Keeffe's most famous pieces, some costing more than the average private jet. One of her most prized purchases? Jimson Weed White Flower No. 1, bought for over $44 million, making it the most expensive artwork by a female artist ever sold at auction. And that's just one canvas. She's also secured pieces by Mark Rothko, John Singer Sargent, and Winslow Homer. These aren't decorative, they're investments, legacies, statements. Her art isn't locked in vaults either. Much of it hangs in the museum she personally built, and we'll get to that in the next section. But even beyond crystal bridges, she's bought art directly from galleries and auctions with prices soaring into the tens of millions. Here's what makes it even more fascinating. Alice doesn't just collect, she competes. She's been known to secretly outbid major institutions like the Met and the Whitney. She plays in elite circles where artworks disappear in seconds, sometimes without the public ever knowing who the buyer was, and often, it's her. Unlike other collectors who show off on social media or hold exclusive parties, Walton stays quiet. No interviews, no press photos, just massive wire transfers and historic acquisitions. She isn't buying art for decoration, she's buying it to shape American cultural history, and rewriting who owns it. When most billionaires want to show off, they buy a yacht or a skyscraper. Alice Walton built a museum. But not just any museum. She spent over $1 billion to create the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art, a massive architectural wonder hidden in the quiet town of Bentonville, Arkansas, the same place where Walmart was born. This place isn't just a museum, it's Alice Walton's personal vision carved into stone, glass, and steel. The building itself looks like it was dropped in the middle of a forest by aliens with an eye for art. Sleek bridges, curved roofs, glowing lights hovering over water. Designed by world-renowned architect Moshe Safdie, the museum sits over a natural spring and blends into the landscape like something out of a dream. And what's inside is even more impressive. Crystal Bridges houses some of the most valuable American artworks in existence, many of them directly purchased by Alice Walton herself. She used her private fortune to outbid major coastal museums and pulled classic works into the heart of the American South. Visitors can walk past works by Andy Warhol, Gilbert Stuart's George Washington, and even Norman Rockwell's Rosie the Riveter. Many of these pieces would have never left New York or DC if it wasn't for her. Opening in 2011, the museum was free from day one, because Alice personally covers the admission costs. That's tens of millions spent just to make sure anyone can walk in and experience art that's normally reserved for elite cities. Since then, she's poured hundreds of millions more into expanding the collection and keeping the museum active. There's now a library, sculpture gardens, and even a satellite space in downtown Bentonville called The Momentary, focused on contemporary art. And here's something most people don't know. She didn't just write checks. She helped choose the artworks, followed the designs, and worked directly with curators. This isn't a vanity project, it's Alice shaping the cultural landscape of the country. She once said she wanted to bring great American art to the heart of America, and she did, using her own fortune to move masterpieces thousands of miles inland. Forget flashy headlines or red carpets. Alice Walton is building a legacy that will last centuries, quietly, elegantly, and with $1 billion price tag. When it comes to land, Alice Walton doesn't think small. One of her most eye-catching real estate investments was her Rocking W Ranch, a multi-million-dollar estate in Millsap, Texas. Sprawling across more than 1,400 acres, this wasn't just a quiet getaway, it was a full-fledged southern estate designed for privacy, power, and prestige. At the center of the ranch sat a luxurious 4,000-square-foot home, positioned on a hilltop with sweeping views of the Brazos River Valley. This wasn't some rustic farmhouse, it was modern, stylish, and designed for someone who could afford just about anything. The interiors featured high ceilings, open living spaces, and a layout built for both comfort and control. The estate included miles of fencing, carefully maintained roads, and its own private water sources. It had custom-built guest houses, equipment barns, a professional office, and even its own airstrip for private landings. The land itself was lush and diverse, open fields, forested areas, and wide coastal Bermuda pastures that stayed green most of the year. Every inch of the ranch was manicured and maintained by a dedicated staff. This wasn't a weekend retreat, it was a working, functional high-end estate with the infrastructure of a private compound. Alice used it to host visitors, oversee her staff, and manage other investments from a secluded but well-connected location. In 2015, she decided to part with it. The entire property was listed for nearly $20 million, making headlines across Texas real estate circles. And when she sold it, she didn't just offload the land, she closed a chapter of her life with it. The ranch went to a private buyer, and she redirected her focus toward art and philanthropy. The sale wasn't about downsizing, it was about shifting gears. For someone like Alice Walton, a property like this is never just about luxury. It's about legacy, investment, and control. And when she's ready to move on, she does it on her own terms. Alice Walton doesn't fly commercial. Her schedule, her status, and her preference for privacy make private aviation the obvious choice. Whether it's for a quick hop between Arkansas and New York or a discreet trip overseas, she flies in total control. No lines, no waiting, no press. While she keeps the details private, it's widely known that she travels by private jet, often on Gulfstream-class aircraft, the same kind favored by royalty, CEOs, and heads of state. These jets cost anywhere from $50 to $70 million depending on the setup. Inside, think leather recliners, wood paneling, full-service kitchens, and Wi-Fi strong enough to run a business mid-flight. And she's not leasing. People at her level usually own or co-own the jet itself, plus the crew and hangar services that come with it. Alice is also known to use helicopters for regional travel. Between her properties, museum responsibilities, and private meetings, she needs speed and flexibility. A chopper gets her where she needs to be without the fuss, landing directly on private helipads or nearby clearings. And while most people don't associate billionaires with infrastructure, Alice actually played a massive role in developing Northwest Arkansas's airport. She helped fund it, shaped it, and even has her name on the terminal. Why? Because if you're going to build a world-class museum and attract global visitors, you need a way to get them there, fast and first class. Her use of private aircraft isn't just luxury, it's a tool. A jet allows her to keep a low profile while moving billions behind the scenes. It's her boardroom, her getaway, and her shield from the spotlight. The sky, for Alice Walton, is just another space she's already mastered. Alice Walton's love for horses isn't casual. It's lifelong, personal, and deeply rooted in her identity. While many billionaires collect watches or cars, Alice bred, trained, and rode some of the finest cutting horses in the country. Her passion for these animals goes back to childhood, and as her wealth grew, so did the scale of her equestrian world. She invested millions into breeding programs, veterinary care, training staff, and top-tier bloodlines. Her horses weren't just for show, they were born to compete. She hired the best trainers, built professional-grade riding arenas, and flew horses across the country for competitions. Each animal was hand-picked or bred to meet elite standards, some worth hundreds of thousands of dollars on their own. At her peak, her operation was one of the most respected in the cutting horse community. She was known for producing champions and pushing the breeding world forward with science and precision. Alice didn't just watch from the sidelines, she rode competitively, and she won. Her name was a serious one in the sport. She once held large-scale auctions where the horses she bred and raised were sold off to elite buyers across the country. At one auction alone, she made over $3 million, not from a business move, but from wrapping up a chapter of her life. For Alice, horses were more than a hobby. They were part of her daily routine, her therapy, her joy. She would ride to clear her mind, think through deals, or simply disconnect from the constant weight of wealth and influence. Even after stepping back from large-scale operations, she still supports equestrian events and maintains a connection to the horse world. This obsession wasn't about showing off, it was quiet, focused, and deeply personal. Her investments in horses weren't about profit, They were about excellence, passion, and the kind of control that only comes when you build something from the ground up. For Alice Walton, the stables were just as important as the boardroom. Alice Walton isn't loud about her giving, but the numbers speak for themselves. Through the Walton Family Foundation, she has helped direct billions of dollars toward education, healthcare, and community development. And that's not including the donations she makes personally, often quietly, but always in massive amounts. Education has been one of her biggest focus areas. She's poured hundreds of millions into charter schools, teacher development programs, and education reform. Not just in one state, all across the United States. She believes that better schools can completely reshape communities, and she's using her fortune to make that happen. She's also invested heavily in healthcare. In recent years, Alice has funded major medical facilities, including a whole health institute and a new medical school in Arkansas. These aren't just buildings. They're designed to rethink how healthcare works, focusing on preventative care, wellness, and community access. She's spent over $250 million on these projects alone. Her giving also goes straight into local communities, especially in Northwest Arkansas. She's helped transform the region with parks, trails, food programs, housing initiatives, and cultural projects. She doesn't just donate, she builds. Whether it's a walking trail or a fully funded art residency, her money is creating permanent change where she grew up. What's different about Alice Walton's philanthropy is the scale and the structure. She's not just writing checks to popular causes. She helps create new institutions, launches research centers, and follows through with long-term support. Her goal isn't short-term publicity, it's long-term impact. She's also a believer in art as a public good. Beyond building crystal bridges, she's helped fund traveling exhibitions, education programs, and access projects that bring museum-quality experiences to underserved communities. All of this giving adds up. By some estimates, Alice has personally overseen or contributed to over $5 billion in philanthropic projects. And she's just getting started. Her fortune may have come from Walmart, but she's using it to reshape everything from classrooms to clinics, and doing it on a scale most people will never see. Alice Walton rarely speaks in public, but in politics, her money speaks loud and clear. Over the years, she's become one of the most powerful political donors in the country, with tens of millions of dollars quietly flowing into campaigns, super PACs, and political causes that align with her interests. She's donated to candidates from both parties, but most of her support leans toward pro-business and education-focused Republicans. Her goal isn't about grabbing headlines or pushing party lines, it's about shaping policy in ways that support school reform, healthcare access, and economic growth. And when she writes a check, it's never small. In just a few election cycles, she's dropped over $20 million into federal races and political organizations. One of her most notable moves was backing education-focused initiatives. Alice has heavily funded efforts to expand charter schools and support education reform at the state and national level. Her donations helped elect lawmakers who back school choice and policies that shift more control to local communities. Critics argue her influence goes too far, but supporters say she's pushing for bold changes in a system that desperately needs it. She's also supported candidates who favor tax policies and regulatory frameworks that align with business-friendly environments, the kind that help build Walmart into a retail empire. Her contributions don't just go to individuals, she also funds organizations and think tanks working behind the scenes to craft legislation. Unlike many billionaires who make their politics a personal brand, Alice keeps her name out of the spotlight. No press conferences, no social media rants. She works through donations, foundations, and direct action, always with a long-term strategy in mind. Her political giving is precise, quiet, and extremely effective. And it works. Politicians who've received Walton support often go on to pass bills that echo her priorities: school choice, lower regulation, and private healthcare innovation. She may not take the stage, but in political circles, her influence is undeniable. For Alice Walton, money isn't just about power, it's about placement, and in Washington, placement is everything. In the high-stakes world of fine art, Alice Walton is a force. But you won't see her at the front row of auctions or posing with champagne in hand. She operates in the shadows, often sending anonymous bidders to art sales where prices climb into the tens of millions. When a rare piece of American art hits the market, chances are she's already circling it. Alice has a reputation for outbidding top museums, even the Met, the Whitney, and the Art Institute of Chicago. She doesn't hesitate when a must-have work appears. One of her most famous moves, quietly acquiring Kindred Spirits by Asher B. Durand for over $35 million. The sale stunned the New York art scene, not just because of the price, but because the beloved painting left the city and ended up in Arkansas. Her strategy is simple: find the piece, make the best offer, and close fast. That's how she's built one of the most valuable collections of American art on the planet. These aren't casual purchases, each one is part of a larger mission to tell the story of the United States through its visual history, and to house that story where everyday Americans can see it. Many of these deals never make headlines. That's because Alice often works through agents and dealers, acquiring works in private sales long before they hit the public eye. These quiet negotiations can involve millions in wire transfers, confidential agreements, and high-level art world politics. She also buys art not just for crystal bridges, but to preserve American pieces that might otherwise be sold to international collectors. She's become a protector of American visual heritage, and she's willing to spend massive sums to keep it intact. What makes her approach unique is that she combines museum-level vision with private collector freedom. She doesn't have to go through committees or seek board approval. She sees what she wants, and she gets it. In an art world fueled by ego, Alice Walton stays quiet, but her influence is enormous. With just a few bids and some well-placed zeros, she can change where history lives. Alice Walton's life is built on one of the most powerful financial engines in modern history, Walmart. As the daughter of Walmart founder Sam Walton, she owns a massive stake in the company. And that stake generates hundreds of millions in dividends every single year. Walmart isn't just a business, it's a global retail empire with more than 10,000 stores and over 2 million employees worldwide. And Alice, she owns a piece big enough to make her one of the richest people alive. Every time Walmart pays out to shareholders, Alice gets a cut, and not a small one. Her annual earnings from dividends alone are estimated at over $300 million, without selling a single share. That money fuels everything else in her life: the jets, the museum, the philanthropy, and the privacy. She doesn't need to hustle for cash or chase business deals. The cash flows in steadily and automatically from the same shelves that sell socks and cereal to millions of shoppers every day. But it's not just about the money. Alice holds real influence inside the company. The Walton family controls about half of Walmart's stock, giving them enormous power over board decisions, company direction, and long-term planning. Even though Alice isn't involved in daily operations, her presence matters. Her voice counts. And with that much equity, she can move markets without saying a word. The family's fortune is also protected by trusts, foundations, and investment arms that grow the wealth behind the scenes. It's a system built for permanence, where the money doesn't just sit, it multiplies. For Alice, this structure allows her to live in a completely different world from most billionaires. She doesn't have to sell businesses, build startups, or go public. Her wealth comes from ownership. Quiet, stable, and colossal. It's why she can focus on art, healthcare, and education instead of boardrooms. The Walton name is stamped on Walmart shelves around the world. And behind the scenes, it's also stamped on nearly every corner of Alice's extraordinary life. Alice Walton lives a private life. But when she steps into the social world, it's through the most exclusive doors money can open. You won't find her at loud celebrity parties or paparazzi-filled events. Instead, she belongs to invitation-only clubs, private retreats, and elite art circles where the guest list is tighter than a Swiss vault. These aren't just social hangouts. They're powerful spaces where billionaires, collectors, and decision-makers gather far from public view. From ultra-private country clubs in Texas to discreet art salons in New York, Alice moves in circles where deals are made over quiet dinners, not press conferences. She's reportedly part of high-level philanthropic groups, including those where only the biggest donors in the world are allowed in. These circles allow her to coordinate with other billionaires on projects, exchange ideas with top museum directors, and influence national cultural initiatives, all while staying off the radar. Then there's the equestrian world, where Alice has long been a respected insider. She wasn't just buying horses. She was attending private competitions, elite auctions, and ranch gatherings reserved for serious players only. These events are closed off to the public, often taking place on multi-million-dollar properties, with security and discretion baked into every detail. In addition, her access to exclusive art societies gives her behind-the-scenes views of upcoming auctions, private collections, and museum exhibitions. This is how she sometimes acquires world-class pieces before they ever reach the public eye. Not through luck, but through deeply rooted access. What makes Alice's involvement unique is that she doesn't flaunt any of it. She's one of the wealthiest people on Earth, yet there's barely a trace of her social life online. No selfies, no leaks, no press coverage. Her memberships are not about status. They're about access, power, and maintaining influence in the world she's helping to shape. To the outside world, Alice Walton may seem quiet, but inside these rarefied spaces she's deeply connected, building relationships, steering conversations, and staying exactly where she wants to be, in control but unseen. For someone worth over $93 billion, Alice Walton lives with remarkable restraint. No fashion brands screaming for attention, no Instagram mansions or gold-plated sports cars. Her wealth is massive, but her personal style, surprisingly low-key. You won't see Alice dripping in diamonds or stepping out of limos. She's more likely to be in jeans, boots, and a casual shirt than anything designed in Paris. Her homes, while spacious and elegant, are far from the flashy mega mansions of other billionaires. She values peace, privacy, and purpose over glitz. That doesn't mean she avoids luxury, she just chooses it differently. Instead of spending on flashy items, she puts her money into things that last: art, land, education, and community. Her lifestyle reflects long-term vision, not impulse. She doesn't live on social media, she rarely gives interviews. She's built one of the largest personal fortunes in modern history, and done it without ever chasing the spotlight. That's her real luxury, freedom from attention. Alice Walton shows that true wealth doesn't need to shout. It moves quietly, invests wisely, and focuses on legacy, not likes. In a world obsessed with showing off, she's mastered the art of staying rich, real, and radically private. That's about it. Hit the like button if you want to have as much money in your bank account as Alice has. For more useful information, watch other videos.